Hi everyone, I'm Joy Ruff, the DB Power Studio Product Marketing Manager at IDERA, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webcast, Master Administration of Multiple Database Platforms with Ease. This presentation will inform current and potential DBArtisan and DB Power Studio users of the helpful product features that address the challenges of managing multiple platforms. We will have time for Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the questions section of the GoToWebinar control panel at any time. Today our presenters are Bert Scalzo and Gary Smith from IDERA. Bert is the Senior Product Manager for the DB Power Studio product family. Bert is a renowned database expert, Oracle ACE, author, and speaker who has presented at numerous Oracle conferences and user groups. Gary Smith is a software consultant and pre-sales engineer on Scott Walz's team. Gary has over 20 years of software development and sales experience. And with that, over to you, Bert.
Hello and welcome everybody. I'm glad that you could join us today. We're going to be talking about mastering the administration of multiple database platforms. Our agenda is to talk first about multi-platform management challenges, then to have a quick overview of DBArtisan. What is it? What value does it give you? What supported platforms does it work for? And then to have a nice and interesting demo of the product and then a Q&A session. Now the challenges for multi-platform management, and you all know this, in your shops you now have to work with SQL Server and Oracle and MySQL and DB2 and Sybase, and the list goes on and on and on. And if you've got to work with all those databases, you know, do you want to install the Enterprise Manager for each and every single database platform and have to have 10 different tools installed on your computer with 10 different user interface designs and 10 different workflows? What would be nice, and what DBArtisan will provide, is a single tool to manage the 12 database platforms that we support, and it has a common look and feel and a common workflow. So somebody who knows how to administer one database can administer database platforms that they may not be as familiar with. And so for the day-to-day management, when you're creating objects, allocating storage, granting people privileges, also doing roles, and when you're looking at some high-level performance information, that's the day-to-day kind of stuff. And again, that's nice because I can create a database user in database X, and then go create one in database Y, and it looks and feels the same. It's the same workflow. So it helps to make you a lot more productive, and it's all in one tool. Then when you have your occasional administrative tasks, like maybe you want to unload or load a table, maybe you want to do a migration from one database instance to another instance, or from one database platform to another platform, we actually have a migration tool to help you with that. And then we're also going to talk about some lesser known features such as our query builder, our profiler, and our debugger. The profiler and the debugger are for your Transact SQL and your PL SQL. In other words, it's not just for bland old SQL, it's more for the procedural SQL that you might write in a particular database. And those features aren't supported on all 12 databases, only on the databases which support profilers and debuggers. So what is DBArtisan? It's a cross-platform database administration tool from one single console. You can manage multiple platforms, Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, Sybase. I'm going to show you a complete list in a moment, but all from one standardized user interface with one common look and feel and one common workflow. You can proactively manage your space, your data, your performance. We have some analytical capabilities in our analysis pack. It can help you to easily find and fix problems. You know, if someone calls and says, hey, the system is slow, can you see who's dragging it down? You can look into DBArtisan to find that. You can move schemas and tables from one database to another, same database platform or different database platform. We will do the conversions. And then you can protect security with controls to your views and tables and snapshots and materialized views and all the other object types that are in there by managing all the grants and to both users and roles and groups and the permissions that you give to those grants. So what's the business value? Well, I think the biggest one is it helps you to be more productive. If nothing else, not having to launch 10 different enterprise managers on my desktop and move from one window to the other to make a change, and to have to remember, okay, in tool X I push these buttons, and in tool Y I push a different set of buttons. Just having that common look and feel and that common workflow allows you to get the tasks done quickly and efficiently because all the tasks to you appear similar. It does, in many cases, provide you some things that the native tools don't. Now, yes, sometimes the native tools will feature we don't, but it's true that sometimes we have a feature that they don't. It kind of works both ways. And so you need to look at, where the differences are and whether or not that's important to you. We simplify the multi-platform administration. That is really what makes you so productive. And you can manage all of this from one console. You don't have to learn 10 different GUIs, 10 different databases, and 10 different workflows. And here are our platforms. Notice that we support DB2, SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, Sybase ASE, and Sybase AQ. Some of you may notice and say, hey, I don't see SQL Server 2016 on there. As of next month, that will be added to our list of supported databases. If you're an Oracle shop and you've been chomping at the bit for Oracle 12c R2, it's coming out in the next 3 months, so I should have support for that within the next, let's say, 4 to 6 months. So we're trying to stay pretty current with that. The other databases, it all depends on what you need. We do have support for Firebird and Interbase, which are desktop-based databases. Those may not be as popular, in large shops. And we also have DB2 for ZOS for those customers who are still in a mainframe. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Gary to do a nice demo.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Gary Smith. I'm one of the software consultants here at IDERA Software. And we're going to show a few of the things that Bert discussed. So, as he mentioned, DBArtisan is a multi-platform tool, and you can see here that I've got several data sources selected, and I've got connections already open with this Oracle instance as well as this SQL Server instance. So there's nothing to prevent you from connecting to multiple data sources at one time. You do have windows that are over here on this side that are specific to the data source you're working with, and in this case, I have this SQL Server data source selected here, and we're going to take a look at the GIM database. Once you're in the data source navigator, this is on the left-hand side, you can obviously go through and do things like if I wanted to look at security, I can open this up. If I wanted to create, let's say I wanted to create a new server role, okay? As Bert mentioned, all this is, regardless of the platform, these types of tasks are going to be wizard driven, so you don't need to know exactly how you would do that in each platform that you might be working with. The wizard will take care of that for you. And at the end, when you get to the last step in the wizard, you're going to get the DDL, which would give you the option to go ahead and execute that SQL code, or you could save it off, and perhaps you want to do certain things during a maintenance period. You could certainly do that as well. One of the things that is available here too are a set of filters. These are the two filters that come kind of canned with the deployment. They can't be deleted. But if I want to filter certain things out, I can create a new filter. So if I only want to see certain groups of tables or a certain owner, then I could do that as well by creating a filter. We also have the ability to create bookmarks. And these drop-down arrows here are can be fairly important. You probably don't use it a lot, but you should know it's there. So bookmarks. Okay, now I have a couple of bookmarks already set. And for this, I have one set in SQL Server, and I also have one set in Oracle. So I'm just going to go ahead and click this in Oracle. Let's say this GIM broker. It's automatically going to to find that and scroll me down to where GIM broker was. There we go. So you can see down here at the bottom, it automatically selected that GIM broker table. And that might be convenient if you have a large number of tables that you're working with to quickly and easily find things that you do plan on using frequently. Another thing that's available here, so if I take a look at my Oracle instance and I look at my schema, okay, that may not be exactly what you're used to seeing or what you might want to see. Well, I can change it to organize by object owner, and if I do that, now I see the different schemas that are available in this Oracle instance. So be aware that that's available. Depending on how you want to see the information in this tree, you can change it to organize by object type or object owner. It's just simple to toggle that back and forth. Okay. Let's talk about data sources a little bit and how you might register that. So if I come up here to the Data Source tab, I can click Register Data Source, and again, this is wizard driven. Here's the list of supported database platforms that I have to choose from. Okay, and I could obviously go through here, but let's just take a look at one that already exists. It might make a little bit more sense. As long as I'm not connected, I can edit that data source connection information. And now we can see here my data source type is SQL Server. Here's my connection information. I've got my IP address, my host address, and the port. Okay? And then we get to security parameters. Here's the login, and I'm going to be logged in as SA today. If you select Auto Connect, then you can simply right-click on that data source in the Navigator and connect to it. You can also connect using Windows Server, Windows Authentication through LDAP if you choose to do that. One thing I would suggest you do is click Test Connection when you get to this point. That'll just tell you whether you've entered everything correctly and whether your connection succeeded or not. It's handy to do this so you don't leave this window just by saying Finish and then you try to connect to it and you can't. So again, to connect to a data source, right-click, connect, and now I'm connected to that instance as well. So over here, if we, in the Data Source Explorer, if we select these items, right, that is the data source instance, it's going to give us kind of an overview of the information about the data source. In this case, we're looking at Oracle. It gives us the instance name, right? It's not tied to an IP specifically like SQL Server might be in the connection string. Startup time, current sessions, locks, total space, and then just here's a rundown of the configuration for that instance. And if you click on the different instances, it gives you all that information. If I select databases, here's a list of my databases in my SQL Server instance, and I'm just going to expand this. Again, very much wizard driven. If I need to create a new table, I can come in here, select tables, and create, and now I'm given a wizard that has several steps to go through and create that table in that database. So same thing is true in Oracle. Come down here, find your schema. Oops, that's SQL Server. Find the schema you're interested in and right-click. Most all of our capabilities where we have wizards are going to be wizard-driven. So a right-click on something will tell you what the available options are. So for example, if I right-click here, now we see a different set of options because I've clicked on this table. And I can do things like update statistics, rebuild indexes, reorganize indexes. I could drop the table. Obviously, I could do an extraction if I wanted to. Again, these types of things, here's the extraction. It's very easy to get to the bottom of this. Okay, so I'm just going to close that. I don't really want to do that. If I double-click on that item, then it's going to open this up in a little bit more capabilities here. And again, here's the DDL view for that. Here's some information about statistics. And I'm not quite sure. Oh, that was an index. That's why. Let me close that. And I want to come back down here to tables and double-click on that. So here's our columns. Okay. Here's our properties, the indexes, which is what we just looked at. Okay. Here's my DDL view, any missing indexes. There aren't any for that one right now. And missing index is something that is available for databases. Perhaps some queries have been run that could benefit from an index. It's going to list what those what the scenarios might be so that you might want to create an index. I also have multiple commands available. If I wanted to, I could edit the data. And again, we come in here, start off what do I want to edit? I'll just say add all in this case. Say OK, and now I've got a data editor if I want to. So let's say that you know what, we realized that this should have been all caps. There's an easy way to fix that, right? So I can come in here and change that, right? And all I have to do is click on another cell. It prompts me to update that row, and now we've made that change, and I can close it. So things like that are very easy to work with. Just close this. So we also have a SQL ISQL editor window that's available. You can, number of ways to get your queries in there. You can copy and paste them. In some cases, you can pull them from other areas of the system. But we can run the query. We can execute this query if we want to, and it's going to give us another tab that has our query result. But I can also get an explain plan. And if I select this icon right here, and then I execute the query again, then I'm going to get the explain plan for this query. And you can look at it in two ways. This is the text view. I could also switch to a graphical view and change the orientation if I wanted to. All right, so let's see here. Orientation, let's go top to bottom, and now we see the orientation of that laid out a little bit differently in a graphical view. I personally think the text view is probably a little bit easier to look at, but that's just me. And again, right-clicking gives you the context-sensitive pop-up menu for how you might want to do that. We also have performance information available for queries, and if you select it, let's say, for example, you did this, and maybe this is not here, right? But you see these green bars. That's an indication that performance information is available. If I come up here and I open the errors dialog down at the bottom, then there's a performance tab right here, okay? And then if I click on one of these items, it's going to give me the performance information for that part of the query. And this amounts to data skew and cardinality. So if you're trying to test whether a query is going to be performant in your system, you know, it's not uncommon to run into the scenario where, you know, maybe QA tested it and it comes back really fast, it gets into production and it's miserable. Well, if you don't have any idea of what your worst case scenario is during your, when you're looking at the data skew and cardinality, then you may be choosing something that's going to return very quickly, whereas, you know, you get out in the real world and it's not necessarily that optimal cardinality, and the query is a miserable failure. So this information can definitely be useful. It takes a little bit of analysis and understanding of your data to make use of it, but it is a tool to help you write better SQL. Okay. We talked about data sources. Utilities that are available, and I'm not going to perform these because they can take a bit of time, especially if you're looking at a large database. But we can do schema extractions, schema migrations, and schema publications. We can also do data loads and unloads. If you needed to move data, say you needed to move some data from production to QA for testing, or maybe you have a new set of reference tables, you could do perform some of these tasks very easily to move data from one instance to another. We also have a database monitor, okay, that is going to show us a lot of information about what processes are running in the database, and these are all sortable as well as filterable. So if I only wanted to see things for SA, then I could create that filter here, and now I'm only going to see tasks that SA has got running. I could also do that by host name, program name, lots of different options here. If there's any locks, it's going to show us what locks are existing, what blocking processes, a system I/O summary. So you can go through these and determine, you know, which ones of this are going to be most important to you. And again, this is the same monitor page that you get whether you're looking at SQL Server or whether you're looking at Oracle or another database. We can also do, for certain platforms, we can also do database backup and restore. Okay, you can create projects if you're using version control. If you're using version control, works basically with any MSS CCI plugin, unless you have the version control actually on this machine. But I think probably on the desktop, most people don't use it quite like that. But it is available if you have that plugin. Okay, log files, very easy to open and truncate log files. If you want to, blow it away and start logging again, so that you don't have a lot of clutter in there, maybe from a bunch of other things, then you can do that to see what's going on. That's very easy to manage. View data source navigator. This simply turns that off and on. We could go to full screen. I think Bert mentioned also that we have a full-featured debugger for debugging stored procedures and triggers, things like that. Typical source code debugger lets you step in, step over, and do those sorts of things. Tools, one of the handy things is a visual diff. So let's say that you have two SQL statements. We could open those up and see what the differences are between one SQL file and another. Basically, you open I think I just clicked one I shouldn't have. Let's just close that. Be aware that it is there. Let's see. I hope I didn't just crash. And we'll give it a second to see if it figures it out.
So Gary, just to talk about the steps that you're doing for folks who are managing those multiple databases. How critical is this for them?
Well, managing multiple databases, looking at a visual diff is not going to be terribly critical, but it could be. If you've got, a lot of times companies will have applications running on more than one database platform. If you want to see what the queries look like, how it's different between SQL and Oracle, you could certainly use it for that, or comparing one version of a query to another, for example. So if I come back in here, we can also do data imports. We also have a query builder, and I have one of those up right now. So if you are not familiar with your schema, let's say, but you know that you need to write a query, you can use the query builder, and that's simply a very easy drag and drop click means of creating a query. If you want to add one of these tables to your query builder page over here panel, just simply right click and say add, and it will add that in. You can see here from the ones I already have added, it does go ahead and create the relationships, so you can see what tables are related by the foreign key. And I'm just going to drop that one back out here. And as we select these columns, it will update what we are getting in our query window, okay? And you also have control over the where clause. So this is just a basic where clause, but if I wanted to, I could also right-click here and open up the properties, and let's say now I want to, what I really want is a left outer join here. Now it modifies that query to be able to do that. The query builder is available in all our platforms, so it's a way for you to easily write a query that is going to get you started. Regardless of your database platform, you do have the ability to choose the type of query that you want in this drop-down. This is a simple select statement. And a lot of times this is a good way to get started. It may not be the end-all for the query that you want, but if I select this panel and then tap any key, it will open up an ISQL window. Okay, so now we're back in ISQL. Some of the other features that we have is a syntax checker, okay, and counter unexpected token there. So that's not the best thing to have happen. But we can also format. We can also format the SQL by choosing this option, and what that's going to do is allow the code to be formatted consistently. So if your users have a tendency, or your developers have a tendency to write poorly formatted SQL, you can bring it in here and you can format it according to a standard template that comes with DBArtisan, and that's going to allow you to edit that template if you want to. So if you don't like the way it happens to be formatted. Okay, so we're still in the query builder. I'm going to close this. Okay. Scheduler. So we use the Windows scheduler. If you need to, as I mentioned earlier, let's say we're creating a new database, we're creating new roles, new users, those types of things. You can use the Windows scheduler to run those in a maintenance period if you wish, or at some other time. We also have an analyst pack that is going to give you some more detailed information about your databases. I'm not going to go into that today because that takes a significant amount of time to demo those components, but just be advised that they are there, and if it's something that you find of interest, then that's going to ship with the product in the next release. So they're available now, but it will ship in the next product as well. So I don't know, Joy, do we have any questions?
I think that we can certainly take some questions right now. If you have questions on the webinar, please open your GoToWebinar control panel with the orange arrow in the top right-hand corner of your screen, and you can submit those questions to us. Gary, I think one question here is there's so much capability and the ability to attach to these different databases. How do you try to ensure that you have some consistency in your SQL code between your Oracle and SQL Server databases? Is that through this tool, or maybe one of the companion tools in the family?
Yeah, I mean, you know, using the template to format the code is one way to ensure consistency. But you know, it's going to be dependent upon the developers and the administrators to ensure that they're consistent in what they're doing.
Okay, very good. What common challenges do you hear from customers when they are trying to manage different databases?
Well, one of the biggest challenges that we hear on a regular basis is from DBAs who you know, are short-staffed and don't have you know, maybe what they feel is, you know, enough time to do what they need to get done. And that's one place where DBArtisan can help out, because you don't have to learn 3 or 4 different tools to be able to get your job done. You can manage all of your database platforms with one pane of glass. And you see here, just from looking at the Oracle and SQL Server instances, we still have the same things, right? Here's filters, server storage security. We've got filter storage security here, our schema. So you have that information available at your fingertips for whatever you might need to do. And if it's a more complicated task, then it's going to be something that's wizard-driven.
And what are the types of challenges that you see customers dealing with for server migration activity?
Well, most of the time, you know, customers are moving up to, you know, things like Azure, or they're making steps toward some of the other platforms, or maybe they're just moving from, you know, an old platform. Let's say you're on, you know, SQL Server 2012, you want to move up to 2016. We can help with those migrations. It's not something that you have to go alone, and you can just simply do the migration, and it will generate all the DDL for you to do that.
Excellent. Well, I don't see any other questions at this time, so I think we'll pass it back over to Bert to wrap us up. Thanks for the great demonstration.
Sure. Okay, thank you, Gary. That was a good presentation. If you look here, 2 of these windows, the 2 towards the upper right corner, those are actually from the performance and capacity analysts, which are those additional features and capabilities that we didn't demo today. And likewise, you can see over here for our data source, all the different platforms that we support. We are considering adding new platforms as well. And what's important is you can download this and do a 14-day trial. And when you download it, it's fully featured. Everything's turned on. You'll be able to test it, connect to your databases, do your things. One question sometimes people will ask is, wow, this tool looks really powerful. How do I know that it doesn't let people do something they're not allowed to do? And the answer is these tools work off of your database security. If I grant Gary the right to drop a table, then this tool will let him drop a table. If I say Gary can't drop a table, this tool will not let him drop a table. So it does not circumvent security, even though it's a very powerful tool. So that's a question sometimes people will ask. And with that, I want to thank everybody who attended.
Bert, actually a question just came in. Somebody asked how they would add a table, or add a column to a table. So let's, can we change it back over to me here for just a second, and I'll show you one more thing, one more feature with the tool.
And while he's bringing that up, I'd like to remind everyone that we actually have a monthly DB Power Studio tips and techniques session. So you can sign up for that to work with Gary or one of our other technical experts to learn more about how to use DBArtisan and the other products in the DB Power Studio suite.
Okay, so I brought up the same view that we saw earlier, which is a view of my broker table. So if I want to add a column, I can simply click Add Column, and now I'm going to type in a name. I'll just give it New Column. And if I tab out, now it adds a new column here at the bottom. I can just leave that type as numeric. That's just what it defaulted to. And that's fine. So now at this point, I've added that. Okay, so if I click Alter up here at the top, it's going to give me the alter script to add that column. Okay, you say, oh, well, that's great, but what I really want to do is I don't want new column here at the end. I want it up here under broker ID. So I can use these up and down arrows to move that new column up through the chain. Okay, so if I want it to appear under broker ID in that sequence, and now that's DBAs, you realize that that's going to be a little bit more involved, right? So if I click my alter script now here's the extended alter. Okay, so I don't have to worry about doing all the tasks that are necessary to deal with all the constraints and update all the pieces that need to be updated for adding something in. And you can see here that's a very different alter script to add that in. So it generated it in a matter of seconds, and that's a much more efficient way than either trying to do it manually. The tool is going to do all that for you, and again, it will do the same thing regardless of your database platform. So adding a new column is something that's very straightforward. It supports extended alters, so you don't have to worry about unloading the data and copying it off to a temporary table and moving it all back. It takes care of all that for you.
Okay, great. I thank you both, Bert and Gary, very much for a great presentation and demonstration as well. A lot of good details from this product. And thank you to all of you who have attended. I invite you to head over to IDERA.com to try our tools for free with a 14-day free trial or download any of our free tools. You can also ask product questions in our forum at community.idera.com. Have a great week, everyone.